We're live. It's pretty cool, huh? Oh, can't hear you.
I was muted.
Is it cool that we're live?
So cool.
All
I don't
right.
know. Is anybody watching us? Where's all the fun people in the...
I just tweeted out about an hour ago for the first time. I probably should have, because we've known for like a week we're going to record this. I probably could have done that.
True. I was waiting for a some kind of notification and it didn't come.
Yeah, you got to
That's
tweet
okay.
5 minutes before we went live, which is
I did.
more than enough time to get people to come to a live stream.
I mean, obviously.
Anyway, nobody said we were good at doing this.
Nobody said you were.
All right.
I've missed you, Dylan.
I can understand that. And I've missed you too, Karen. We got boxes in the background.
Yeah, I still haven't finished unpacking my apartment.
I've lived in my
lived
place
here for 3 months.
I moved in December last year, and I haven't finished unpacking because it's my own place and I don't need to. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Stop. Thank you. Welcome
Are you yelling at the dog?
Welcome to Better Talk Saul. I'm Dylan Schuck.
I'm Karen Peterson.
In this podcast, we're discussing the second season of the AMC original series, Breaking Bad. You're listening to Better Talk Saul. In this podcast, we're not going to pretend Better Call Saul didn't exist. So tread lightly if you're concerned about that show spoilers. I don't know. That thing is that warning has run its course.
Yeah, a little bit.
But how else am I supposed to do this? All right. So funny thing. We recorded a month ago for season 1. And I went to upload the episode like 2 or 3 days after. And it didn't upload.
Oh.
I found that out today.
Oh. So should we...
It's okay. There's no rush. We'll just probably put this out in like 2 weeks after we record it. But anybody out there, if you want to see these when we first drop them, we stream them live on YouTube, and then I can just walk away. And then you also get the fun banter at the beginning of the episode, which is a lot of fun, except for anybody that listens to it. And so, you get these much quicker if you subscribe to us on YouTube. And if you want to find that, go to our Twitter at BetterTalkSaul, and there's a ton of links to our YouTube channel in there. Every episode we stream live, and you can join the conversation right now. There's thousands of people here along with us, and you don't want to be left out of that conversation. Isn't that right, Karen Peterson?
So many people.
Greg from Tallahassee in the chat said, "You guys are the best. I love Dylan. He's a great host, and Karen is cool." Thanks, Greg from Tallahassee. We appreciate that. Long way. Tallahassee is a long way from California. So that's really awesome that you went all that way to listen to us on this podcast. All right. So, we're just going to kind of, like I said before, we're going to spend a month on each season where we watch the whole season for the month. And then we're going to discuss it on here kind of the last Tuesday-ish of every month. Kind of. Something like that. It's kind of what we've been doing. Approximately. And then I will be releasing the episodes at random on our feed, but it will be like clockwork on the YouTube channel if you want to come. And then sometimes Karen and Peterson and I do a YouTube stream where we play movie trivia games.
We do. We haven't done that for a while, though.
I know. We need to. We need to, like, next week.
Okay.
Tune in if you want to join in.
Yeah, I could do next week.
Sometimes we get along, and sometimes we don't during it.
That is so true.
If you want to watch Karen Peterson and I closest that we ever are to murdering one another, you should see us team up in a movie trivia.
Like, it's a really good thing that we do not record that from the same room.
It's also a good thing that we've known each other for so many years. Otherwise, people would think that we hate each other. But
Yeah.
it's such a strong bond
It
that when
is.
you hear us doing movie trivia, it's years of knowing each other that just explodes into a volcano. But volcanoes
Yes.
can be really good because it brings fresh ground.
Exactly. Exactly. And there's no stronger bond for people than war. So,
I don't know if that's a saying. It might
It
be.
is now because I made it one.
So, let's talk Breaking Bad.
Okay.
Season 2, first episode aired on March 8th, 2009, and it ran until May 31st, 2009. My God, it's been a long time.
Man, where were you in 2009?
In San Diego, newly moved in San Diego. When this aired, Barack Obama had been president for 5 weeks,
Yeah.
maybe 6 weeks. Everything looked like it was going well, and anyway, so this I still, watching this season, it's still just table setting for the chaos of the third season is when it really just goes to the next level. And
Yes.
obviously the fourth and fifth seasons are absolutely amazing. And I'm not just saying this is a bad season because obviously it's not. It's a very good season. First season's a very good season. The show is just good all the time, the whole way through. People can complain about the fly episode. I disagree. Karen vehemently disagrees. That's like her favorite episodes, which
One of them. It's really
yeah,
good.
yeah. But
But I think
it's
just to what you're saying about season 2, I think that I've said this for a long time. I think there is a moment in season 2, and we'll talk about it more specifically when we get there, but I think Walt's official moment where he fully breaks bad, point of no return, happens in season 2 toward the end of the season, and it's really a pivotal moment.
are you talking about at Jesse's place
Yes, I am.
where he basically commits murder?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, we don't want to go too much into what you're talking about. We're going to leave it ambiguous.
Well, I figured we would talk more specifically about it when we get there, but let's
Yeah.
talk about kind of let's build up to that.
Yeah. All right. So we'll use the Breaking Bad wiki. I don't think we did that for season 1 because we just kind of freestyled like Eminem in his prime. But we'll just run through the Breaking Bad wiki and kind of scroll through, and it gives a summary of the whole season, and it's about as long as a normal episode's length because it's pretty summarizing. So we'll go over that and we'll give our thoughts as we go along. It starts off with Tuco. Man, the Tuco problem gets really sealed up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Apparently, he was supposed to be in the show longer, and then he had another commitment, so they had to kill him off. That ended up being a good thing, though, because it brought us Gus. I could be messing up that a little bit. I might not be. I don't know. Karen's nodding her head in agreement, like she always does, because she always agrees with me. So, in an abandoned auto junkyard, Tuco buys meth from Jesse and Walter and kills his henchmen No Dose for speaking out of turn. So, I disagree with this the way they word this, because he doesn't just kill him, right? He doesn't mean to kill him. He just beats him until causing him like brain bleeding, brain hemorrhaging, and he dies.
Yeah. Tuco
He,
has some impulse control issues.
that's an interesting take. Tuco is a good villain, but I'm glad he dies, and I'm glad kind of a more grounded, malicious villain comes into play, because I don't think, I think it is for the betterment of the show that we don't get drawn off with Tuco, because obviously it's good to see different types of villains coming in and kind of butting heads with them, because that leads for good TV. But I'm glad his time is served for the short while that it is, and then it's over, because I don't know if I can deal with his character. It
Yeah.
makes me
Well,
think, how could he have survived this long on the streets with the way he acts?
I think because of the way he acts. Tuco is pure chaos, but
Chaotic evil?
he is. He is chaotic evil, and he's just like a really mean guy who does not have any concept of boundaries. And because of the connections he has with his family and with the cartel, he doesn't know how to take no for an answer, and he's never really had to. And people just like, including his uncle, will just let him get away with stuff. And so it's he doesn't even have to have survival skills. He just has to be the toughest guy around, or at least let everybody think he is. And by tough, it's not physical strength necessarily. It's um this willingness to do whatever the hell he feels like. And so I think that's how he survived for so long. People are afraid to cross him because they don't know what he will do when they do that. And
Because also, how do you challenge a guy that says tight, tight, tight? You can't.
yeah,
But
exactly.
he,
I do have some questions about, and I know we kind of touched on this when we were talking about season 1, because that's where we get that introduction. But I really wonder what it was like being in prison, like seeing Tuco and Skinny Pete interacting in prison. I cannot imagine that. And the fact that Tuco has any time for Skinny Pete is so strange to me.
maybe a graphic novel giving us the backstory of this would be good.
That'd be great. I'd read that.
Apparently they're done. Oh yeah, Vince Gilligan is working on another show with Ray Seahorn
Yes,
on
but not in
AMC.
this world.
Yeah. So he said he's done with this world.
Hmm.
They didn't. I don't think they said the word forever, but that's what they at least insinuated. They're done, moving on.
I think that's kind of their intention. Doesn't mean that someone else won't have the chance to pick up and go in a different direction with some of these characters, but I think, I have to say I applaud them, Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould, for wanting to go and do other things. I think um, some people have this tendency to constantly be trying to capture this phenomenon, and um, I think they've struggled twice with Breaking Bad and then with Better Call Saul, and I think that it's very
And El
possible that they
Camino.
could. Right, true. It's very possible that they could do, anything else they do, people are going to watch, they're going to be into, but they run the risk of turning it into like what's happened with Walking Dead, where there's just so much and it's so big and sprawling and it's just gotten ridiculous. And I think that ending things now is really a good call, because it's still on a high. It's that athlete who retires at the end of a really awesome season, when they're at a point where they're about to start to slide, and
That's
they go out
literally
before
only
that
Michael Jordan
happens.
that's done that. It's literally just a Michael Jordan thing.
Yeah.
Everybody else waits till
Most of them wait too long.
yeah.
And that's what happens with most shows and franchises too, is they wait too long to stop and move on.
Well, Vince Gilligan also runs the risk of being a George Lucas.
Mhm.
And this is a fun game we're playing on. If you're watching live on YouTube,
Yeah.
that you keep doing,
I'm
it's okay.
sorry. I don't know if you can see what my camera's doing, but it's driving me nuts. And
It's okay. We won't adjust it again. We'll just keep doing that, and
okay.
we'll keep going back and forth like that. Anybody that's enjoying this stream must be
It
enjoying
looks
it
like
a lot
eyeballs.
now.
It looks like a
So,
face.
yeah, I think we've probably talked about this ad nauseum on the podcast, so we probably don't need to go into that anymore. But there's this sense of being along for the ride that I get with Breaking Bad that I don't get on other shows. Like, for you and me, people like you and me, who spent thousands of hours reviewing stuff.
Yeah.
Our brains start thinking differently. When you watch a movie with somebody, a normie, for the first time, and you start you're like, oh man, I really like that they did this or whatever. Or, oh man, I really like, you just start pointing out something that you like or whatever, and you realize you can't turn your freaking brain off. Like when I'm watching a show, I'm not thinking, oh my God, why is Toby doing this? And why is Eric doing this? Because there's a show with a Toby and an Eric, I'm sure, somewhere. But I'm thinking, why are the writers setting that? Where are the writers taking me? Right? Like, why did they make this decision? Oh, they're making this decision because it's going to create more drama for the show, that kind of stuff. I'm just not as always on along for the ride. Even if it's a great show and I love it, I'm like, oh man, that's genius of the writers, right? Like, we don't just ride along with it like we're like, you know what I'm saying? Like our brains think of things a little differently. But
Yeah. Well, and
Breaking
I'm
Bad,
always, yeah. Well, just, yeah, in that vein, like I'm always trying to anticipate, not even trying to, but what I end up doing, to your point, is that I'm anticipating the twists and turns that will happen along the way. Not in a, fan trying to guess what's going to happen
yeah,
next,
in a
but in a
writer's
trying
perspective.
to see if I can understand the direction the writers are going.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's like and sometimes when things happen, you go, oh, of course, that's what the writers were setting us up for this entire time. Oh, they were building this. I can't believe I didn't see that. Like that happens in Game of Thrones all the time. You know, the Mountain and the Viper. I remember going into that episode when I was like, oh man, I can't wait. Like, how is this going to go? Right. And then after it ends, I'm like, duh. It only could have gone that way. It
Yeah.
only could have gone that way. And, but that's not to say we don't enjoy watching stuff. My God, we enjoy fucking watching stuff. But that's just how our brains think. Somebody's like, why are you always pointing that kind of stuff out? Like, and it's just like, that's how our brains think. Breaking Bad, I'm just along for the ride. Shout out to Shakita in the chat. Hey, Shakita.
Hey, Shakita.
She says she thinks of things often the same way as well, and shout outs to her for that. Thanks for not making us feel so alone in more ways than one.
So many ways.
But yeah, I'm Breaking Bad. I'm just on the roller coaster, right? I'm along for a ride. They have a really good way of writing things that don't make it seem like that's the only way they could have gone. It just seems like they write themselves in corners to make it difficult. The same way Walt and Jesse are getting themselves into corners and it's difficult, right? Like, it seems like they don't have it all planned out. They have an idea, but they don't have it planned out. But it seems like they just like, don't worry about the next episode. Let's write this one, by this, what's it called? By the skin of our teeth.
Skin of our teeth, yeah.
Let's just try to stay alive for this episode that we're writing, and then we'll figure out the next one. And that's totally the pace of the series, especially as it gets into season 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's so particularly great about that feeling of it is that they do paint themselves into these corners, and it's just like, how the heck are they going to get out of this? And then the solution, what you were saying a bit ago, the solution makes sense. It's not there are very rare instances of there being any sort of a sense of it, like a Deus Ex Machina, where it's like the solution just magically appears with no setup. It's like every time there's something where Walt just realizes, like, wait, we have the materials we need, and I know the science, I can fix this, when the RV breaks down. Or, just other situations where it's like a solution presents itself, but not in any sort of way that doesn't make any sense, not in any sort of like a, I guess magical way. It's always something that totally fits within the rules and the confines of what we've already seen.
I love me some 24. And they also wrote like that, where they didn't know what was going to happen next. They didn't know who was going to be the villain. And oftentimes it seems like they pulled a fucking rabbit out of their hat. And sometimes it's like, I'm like, man, they're just like trying to fool each other. They're trying to fool the writers are trying to fool the writers. And on this, they just come out with this elegant solution from like, what if a brilliant man was in this situation? It seems like every situation they get into, they kind of write backwards. Like, okay, the goal is to move this plot point forward and for them to get free from this. And then they kind of deconstruct that backwards, and they look at it from the mind of a genius. And it seems like they really have some help from a chemistry perspective and from a cunning perspective. The way the show kind of plays out.
And it really shows in how every character is developed. They really know these characters. They know Walt. They know what his limitations are. They know what he's capable of. They kind of have that all figured out. And so the solutions that they have for him, oh my gosh. Dylan is distracting me, and now I can't remember what I was going to say. But yeah, it's like nothing ever feels like, well, there's no way Walt could have known that. There's no way he would have figured that out, because he does know so much, and we're constantly reminded in good ways. We're constantly reminded of the fact that this isn't quote unquote. I do not mean this in a disparaging way, but he's not just a high school chemistry teacher.
Were you saying just a teacher?
There are people who would look at him that way and who think that he, that being a high school chemistry teacher means that he's not, capable of advanced science, which is completely false. Like, I think a lot of high school chemistry teachers, my cousin happens to be one, probably could do a lot of the stuff that Walt does. But because of what we also learned through the years and what we got in season 1 about gray matter, and then we get these reminders of the fact that even beyond what the normal skill set of someone with a science background would be able to do, he's got that something extra. And so it just makes sense.
Well, Karen, for your family's sake, I hope that your cousin doesn't listen to this podcast, because that was downright offensive. And
I'm sure he doesn't.
So Jesse purchases a gun to protect himself from Tuco, but Walt proposes they kill Tuco with poison instead. And this is with a ricin pill, correct? Is this ricin?
Was this the first introduction of ricin? I thought he made it out of something else.
It is ricin.
Was it ricin?
Yeah. And
are you just saying that so that you're right?
No, it's Breaking Bad wiki. It says poison, and you click the link, and it's ricin.
Okay.
So the ricin, season 2, the first time Walt created ricin, it was intended to kill Tuco Salamanca. Walt created a packet of meth mixed with the poison, hoping that Tuco would snort it. This also does drive me insane. This, like, he's like, yo, it's the bomb. You should take it. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I had a special ingredient. Walt's like, shut up. And he's like, what's the ingredient? Chili powder. And he's like, I hate chili powder. And it's like, just out the scene.
He was just about to do it. He was just about to try it.
Also, they're like hoping he takes it, but it would take. I think I'm having computer issues here.
I don't know if it's you or me.
This might be messing with the recording. I don't know. I'm trying to ride this out.
The sound still is fine.
Okay. It takes like 2 days to kill you. So, like, what's their big excitement? They're like,
it?
I don't know. There's only one way to find out, which is why Karen Peterson and I both have ordered some ricin for the podcast. We are going to snort it. We're going to see who dies first. And we're going to see, one of us is going to snort it. One of us is going to ingest it. And we will get back to you on the next episode, who died first.
I'm ready.
Shout out to Ricin, who sponsored this podcast. Ricin, don't take it. Use promo code BetterTalkSaul anywhere you can purchase ricin. Hank Schrader sends Walt a cell phone photo of No-Dose and Gonzo. So Gonzo had died because he was jacking up a car and the van, and it fell on him and cut off circulation. So Tuco loses both his henchmen in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
And then after that, they raided Tuco's headquarters. So Tuco's like, I got to bail the United States. But he wants his meth cook to come with him. And he just goes and takes them like they're going to just come with him to Mexico and live there from now on.
Yeah, and I love how he's just like, yeah, it's going to be great. You're going to just cook for me. You're going to make so much money. Like, wait, you're fucking kidnapping us and taking us to Mexico. Why would we say sure?
He is high on meth.
Yeah, that is true.
And so, I think there's a brilliant plan on Tuco's part, but also this episode, in that episode where they're there, it's obvious how little sense Tuco has, right? Especially in when he's drugged up, which he seems to be the whole time. Which, don't get high if you're on supply. Completely different character than Gustavo Fring.
Yes.
Who's what would it be? Not would you call him lawful evil?
Yes.
And would you say unlawful good is Mike?
I think that.
Should we pull up a alignment chart, Breaking Bad?
Yeah, let's do.
Alignment chart, Breaking Bad. Let's see. Maybe my computer will freeze this. Oh, think about Hank. Oh, come on. Okay. Oh, so we got Marie Schrader, who's neutral good.
Okay, yeah.
Tuco Salamanca, chaotic evil.
Yeah, totally.
Todd is neutral evil?
No. Well, no. Well, he's not chaotic and he's not lawful.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Mike Ehrmantraut is lawful neutral. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't call him lawful.
Well, okay, but the thing is that lawful doesn't necessarily mean that you follow the actual laws of the land. It means that you follow the laws and principles of your own morality.
Right.
So,
it still says is definitely one of the hardest characters to classify, meaning he's a well written one. Still, the closest we'll give him is lawful neutral. This is Screen Rant that did this. Saul Goodman, neutral evil. Well, maybe through the lens of Breaking Bad. Better Call Saul makes it hard to say that. Hank Schrader, lawful good. Can't really argue with that one.
yeah.
Skylar Wright, chaotic neutral.
Skylar, yeah. I would chaotic neutral. Well, yeah, I guess later. Yeah.
Skylar did her fair share of home wrecking, especially with her most terrible deed in the show, remember, as cheating on her husband. That's not the most terrible deed she did. She helped him launder drug money.
An accessory, yeah. She became an accessory in the drug crimes.
It's fucking stupid. This makes Skylar a selfish character despite being a decent mother. Who wrote this? A child? All right. Gustavo Fring, lawful evil. Jesse Pinkman, chaotic good. I'm with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
And Walter White, neutral evil.
No.
I just don't like this because you need to have. They keep putting three. They put Todd, Saul, and Walter White in the same. I need to see this as an actual chart.
Okay, well, I found one that kind of just gives
On
examples
Reddit?
of. No, this is from. I don't know where this is from, but it basically just kind of gives like characterization examples. This isn't like who the Breaking Bad characters would be necessarily. So, for neutral evil, what it says, and this is what it's saying, what that your chart is saying that Walt is. So, a neutral evil person wants you to either rewrite the paper or do 12 unnecessary experiments. And that does actually sound like Walt.
Yeah. Okay, so I found one online. Everybody agrees Hank lawful good.
Mhm.
Everybody seems to agree. Well, this one doesn't have Mike on it. They have true neutral as Huel.
Um,
That's fair.
I think he's. Yeah, I guess. I wouldn't say he's lawful neutral.
Yeah, and he's not good. He's in between good and evil, and he's in between chaotic and lawful.
Yeah, I guess true neutral makes sense.
But I think this one, anyway, this is.
What would you say Jane is?
She's chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say chaotic neutral. Like she's chaotic,
I
well, she
kind
only
of think
becomes
she
bad
has.
when she only becomes bad when she becomes chaotic, and that's from a relapse. So she is like a lawful good at first, and slowly moves down the alignment chart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think by the end she's chaotic evil because I think that's her nature that's unlocked when she's under the influence is to she because of the fact that it's not just over when Jesse gets his money. It's like, yeah, you don't know. I might still burn you to the ground just because I can.
Yeah, but she just said that she didn't like do anything about that.
But you also get the
I'm not
sense
sure.
that if she felt like it, she really would.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we just like never got a chance to find out.
That's true.
But anyway, so they try to slip him the poison, but this amazing scene of them thinking Hector doesn't know anything and he's old and he can't
Mm-hmm.
communicate. And this like they make it clear, like he first of all knocks over the breakfast they put on him, and they're like sitting there just being like, oh shit, he knows. It's such great tension
Mm-hmm.
and a lack of information. So it's tension while we're gaining information to make the scene more and more tense as it goes along. Because at first we think just like them that he's a vegetable.
Yeah.
And then as we
I
go
mean,
along,
Walt changes the channel on the TV and he doesn't even react.
right. And it seems like what Hector's doing is purposely acting like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he can, because he's already suspicious of them at that point. And then he's like, I'll just act like I'm a vegetable and then convey the information. And he also shows that he thinks Tuco's an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Because he didn't plan this with Tuco. Like, he's just sitting there being like, I don't want Tuco to be killed, but he didn't discuss this at any point or try to discuss it or show them. And it also shows that Tuco underestimates the abilities of his uncle as well, from the fact that he just thinks he's an old man that's tossing his food on the ground. But yeah, it's just like he's confused. He doesn't know what date it is. He's like, is it Sunday? Is it Monday? Is it Tuesday? Ding, 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 ding.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's such a great scene. And
Yeah.
who knew a little bell could bring so much tension?
It's so true. So true. And it's so great. And it's such a good introduction to Hector Salamanca, too, who we don't know anything about at this point as an audience either. And we have no idea how pivotal he's going to end up being down the line.
Yeah. And so Hank, it says Hank briefs his. Oh, sorry. Marie tells Skylar White that Walt might have a second phone and suggests Hank's visits.
Well, you got to remember that Walt is missing right now.
Right.
The family doesn't know, like, he's been kidnapped, obviously, we know that, but the family has no idea where he is. And this is Hank does his briefing, and then leaves because he's going to go out and help with the search for Walt. And this is when the whole thing with the second cell phone starts.
And he talks to Pinkman's mom, and she says that he has LoJack. and then he tracks Jesse to Tuco's place. He doesn't know he's going to walk up there to Tuco.
Right. He doesn't know that that's Tuco's house or his uncle or whatever.
Right.
He's just following Jesse's car.
Right. And that's to help find Walt.
Mm-hmm.
Like this
because he knows that the two of them had a recent interaction, and he's just chasing down every possible connection to try to find where Walt may be.
Yeah, at this point, they think that Jesse's his pot dealer.
Yeah.
So they try to slip Tuco the poison, and Hector tips Tuco off. They escape while he's about to like beat him to death, like or I think he put him in a hole to bury them. Also,
mm-hmm.
Did he make them dig their own holes?
Yeah, I think he made them dig their own grave,
and which is so smart.
It's really efficient.
I've seen some things about this. I saw a documentary about this happening in war. Oh, I think it's the Peter Jackson one. That was coloring World War II in color or something like that.
World War I.
World War I in color, yeah.
They were soldiers, I think.
The like when you have somebody at gunpoint, you can get them fairly easily to dig their own grave, because the line from the movie was they thought that if they did a good job, they wouldn't kill them, which shows just how like psychologically that's apparently something that people do pretty easily in those situations.
You're trying to please your captor, yeah.
The better of a job you do, right? Like literally, if you think about it, the worse situation you're in, but they just don't want to, they don't want to have to do that afterwards. So anyway, it's messed up and it's a weird topic, but that just kind of stumbled upon my mind. But people are like, well, I have more time to live at least if I do this. And they use that time to eventually wrestle the gun away from him, shoot him in the stomach, and then kind of run off and left all the money. Jesse lost his money that was in the Tuco's car, got confiscated.
Yeah.
And
then they see a car coming. And they think it's the cousins, but it's not the cousins.
It happens to be Hank. Crazy coincidences go along here, but it's okay because
there's a lot of those in season 2, I will say.
Yeah, but for some reason it doesn't like really stand out as like unbelievable or like
the only one that feels a little bit like, okay, that's a little bit too far is the location of the plane crash. But other than that I think everything else, yeah, that's a little like, really, come on, guys. But everything else, I think they managed to make it feel natural enough.
I'll give credit to Better Call Saul that it made Albuquerque seem huge.
Mm-hmm.
Breaking Bad really makes Albuquerque seem like it's a town of 50 people.
Kind of, yeah.
Maybe 55 max. Like Better Call Saul really expanded the just the concept of Albuquerque.
Yeah.
I think because it's dealing with bigger companies and a big court system and all that kind of stuff. And, Breaking Bad really kind of just seems like a really small town because everything happens at 4201 Negro Arroyo Lane. Maybe I got that address wrong. I know it's Negro Arroyo. But
someone's going to go to the wrong house and it's going to be your fault.
To cover for the disappearance, Walt fakes amnesia and is hospitalized while Jesse removes meth evidence from his house. And, obviously the scene of him getting his RV taken by Badger's cousin. It's a really sad scene of Jesse hitting rock bottom without any money. He's like falls into a porta potty and he's covered in blue, and his friend invites him over and he's like, promises or no calluses. It's calluses. Then they like sing a song from their high school band they played together, and the wife's me like, no, he can't stay here.
It's so sad too, because like he knows as soon as the wife comes home and sees him there and is like, "Hey, I need to talk to you," in the next room, Jesse immediately knows, like, yeah, they're not gonna let me crash here tonight. I have no place to go.
Yeah, and he got kicked out of his parents' house because they thought he had weed and he didn't want to rat out his brother. But I like that he didn't just give the joint back to him; that he like crumbled it up.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's
Don't be
skunk
like
weed
me.
anyway. And anyway, while he's there at rock bottom, he, tries to plead with Badger's cousin, who will not help him, and he goes and broke into it. And eventually, Walt gives some cash to Jesse, and the Skylar suspicion is just adding up more and more and more and more. The biggest cliffhanger to the end of season 2 is where Walt and Skylar are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be exciting to talk about next month.
Yeah. Marital bliss.
So Jesse rents a duplex apartment from Jane, who lives next door, and assembles a meth dealing crew with Badger, Skinny Beat, and Combo. Again,
Combo.
I love this show, but I hate Combo. I think he's just
Poor Combo.
He's just corny. That's one of my biggest complaints of the entire show. All goes well until a junkie couple robs Skinny Pete, and then there's that scene where he goes over to the meth head's house and they're trying to get the money out of the ATM, and then one of them squishes ahead with the other's head in the ATM. Both of them were on Better Call Saul, I believe.
Yeah.
The girl and the guy. Mm-hmm. And then word got out that Jesse did it, and everybody's afraid of him, at least initially. But apparently,
so everyone's paying up.
Right. And then that woman copped to the crime later, and then nobody's afraid of him anymore. That's corny. I don't think anybody cares about that woman, like in that underground scene. And I think Jesse would be like, she's crazy. Or yeah, I got her to cop to it.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that anybody ever really talked to Jesse about it. I think it's just kind of my imagination of what happened and why that kind of rumor died out is probably someone was telling someone else, "Oh yeah, that Jesse Pinkman, he murdered a dude with an ATM machine." And someone's like, "Bullshit, that guy's wife did it." And then that was kind of
you know what? Usually when you push back against the things I say, I want to argue with you further, but fair enough. Apparently you know the street life better than I do, Karen Peterson. I give you credit for that. This is when DEA first gets the whiff of Heisenberg.
We get that great music video.
What'd you say?
We get that great music video in the opening of one of the episodes.
So what is that? Like, is that an actual music video, or is that just all like that's not actually, that's just a like
that was
kind
just
of
something fun they created as a like cold open.
Yeah, like a fourth wall breaking thing, kind of to just show that he's kind of become a little bit of a legend.
Urban legend, yeah.
Kind of a Kaiser Sose.
Yeah, the guy they're writing songs about.
Right. But they're not actually trying to make us feel like they actually did write songs about it.
Right.
Also, this is when we get the idea of how good Jesse is with kids. At that meth house after
Jesse. He has
Spooge.
such a good heart.
Spooge is the one that
Spooge.
Anyway, Skylar meanwhile thanks Gretchen for funding Walt's chemo, and then that conversation where she goes and has dinner with Walt, and that's when they drop the F-bomb of the season. She says something like, I feel sorry for you, and he's like, fuck you. And you see just how pissed he is at them and how he's letting his resentments into his heart in a huge way. And it's just poisoning him.
Yeah. Well, and you really see how much bitterness and resentment he's been holding on to for so long. And now that he is tapping into this a different way of realizing his potential, sort of, it's kind of weird to think of becoming a, drug kingpin as tapping into your potential, but it sort of is, because of the fact that he does have this brilliant mind. He's able to create something that no one else is able to do, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that for Walt is very intoxicating and gives him that feeling of power that he hasn't had in his life in a long time. And even though it hasn't fully turned into what he envisioned it to be, and what we know eventually it will be, he
Well,
still
also
has a
he
little bit of
also
that
felt
power.
like it was taken from him, or
Mhm.
if he had a sliding doors situation with Gwyneth Paltrow, he could have had that, and he's always
Mhm.
felt like he should have had that or could have, but a
And
complicated
what we
situation.
Yeah, well, and what we get in that scene with him and Gretchen is that they have two very different versions of what really happened. Like, to him, they stole this from him. They stole his life work. It was taken from him. He was wronged. And she's just like, "What are you talking about? You were the one that left. You were the one who walked away, gave it up, left me, left us." And she's still hurt by that too, but she has I mean, obviously she's been able to wipe her tears on $100 bills, and he hasn't had that. But their experience, this is one of those situations where people can experience the exact same thing in two completely different ways, and that's clearly what's happened.
They say having a resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick.
Yep, that is
And
true.
I think that Walter White is a perfect example of that. And
Yeah.
how, well, literally and figuratively, he was sick from his terribly built up resentments, and how many times his family has to deal with, here's a solution for our cancer and our money issues, and he says no because he's too proud.
Mhm. Yeah. And like so many people in the real world, I mean, pride is really ultimately what destroys people. It's not the choices, it's the pride that leads to the choices that is so destructive.
So Skylar returns to Beneke Fabricators, and
Gets her old job back.
where her boss had once flirted with her. I got the idea that they had like hooked up at a holiday party or something. That was one time
What
she
it
said.
sounds like is he got a little handsy with her at a holiday party, and she decided not to do anything about it because she was just excusing him for being a little drunk. And he was the boss's son at the time.
Got it. And then she sings "Happy Birthday, Mr. President of Beneke Fabricators." Um, yeah, very awkward scene where he's like, she has to sing. She has to sing. And Lily's like, the candles are going out, the wax is spilling everywhere. Would we move on from this? You also get the idea that women don't really like her because she does seem to get favoritism from him.
Not seem to. She flat out does. I mean, he clearly values and respects her. I mean, she comes in applying for like I can't even remember exactly what the job was she was looking for, but it was something far below what she had left. And he's like, "What are you doing? You can just have your job back. That department's a mess without you." And so she waltzes right back into something of a much more powerful position in the company right off the bat.
Yeah.
And doesn't seem like any of the people that are there even really know her. So it seems like there's probably been a lot of turnover since she was there before.
Yeah. Skylar assures Marie the incident won't reoccur, but the two later share an intimate moment when Skylar opens up about Walter's cancer.
The incident is that
The flirting incident.
the flirting stuff. Okay.
The handsy incident.
Grabby hands.
I really hate the El Paso storyline. I know it's important because there's PTSD that comes into play later. It comes into play in this season too. He has a panic attack in the elevator or whatever, and then I love how he arrives and he's putting back on a show.
Hmm.
And it's good just to try to get us to empathize with Hank and not just think he's a. He comes off initially as Todd Packard from The Office.
Mm-hmm.
He's much
Yeah.
more than that. But he gives those Todd Packard
Yeah.
vibe.
Well, in Albuquerque, he's very respected in his office. He's able to give people a lot of shit and receive a lot of shit too, because it's all in good fun and they all know each other really well. But then he goes to El Paso where he doesn't know these guys. They don't know him. They think he's a dummy. And he hears them talking shit about him, and not in a fun, teasing way. It's like he's really not respected and not treated that well here.
Yeah,
And
they're making fun of him
he's
because he doesn't
totally
speak
out of his
Spanish.
element. Mm-hmm.
So he is getting a taste of his own racism that he gives out to people, right? In a reverse way, where they see the strength of those things, where Gomez would be getting along well and he wouldn't. And I think that frustrates him.
Yeah, totally.
And he suffers an anxiety attack over his encounter with Tuco. So this is already kind of happening after Tuco, but then he has many situations he deals with. Obviously, he deals with the situation in El Paso, and then he deals later with a situation with the cousins who don't value their own life at all when they're attempting to kill him. But we'll talk about that next season in a month.
Poor Danny Trejo's head.
Tortuga.
That poor tortoise. Really,
Yeah.
that's who I feel bad for.
Me too. I did find out at the end no tortoises were hurt in the filming of that, which I actually appreciated.
I wasn't sure. I thought
How
they might have
frustrated he is about seeing everybody, like, basically fanning him in that hotel room when he's looking through a catalog ordering stuff that he wants, which is funny. It's interesting. I remember thinking, man, they should have had Danny Trejo back on Better Call Saul. This storyline has nothing to do with any of the cartel that we're dealing with in the rest of the show.
Nope.
Completely separate.
It's really a one-off, and it's really just about character development for Hank.
Right. Exactly. And then this nice little line, Jesse and Jane develop a romance.
Sure. Yes, they do.
Little scene of them holding hands. She is beautiful. I would definitely also do the same thing if I was Jesse, but guess what? I'm not Jesse. So let's get back to the podcast. What do you say, Karen Peterson?
By the same thing, you just mean the romance part, right? Not the like heroine.
The entire thing. I would do the entire thing, Karen, is what I'm saying.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify.
I would do heroin with her for sure. Okay. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening. After an undercover cop busts Badger, that's such a funny scene with DJ Qualls. If I'm a cop, I have to say I'm a cop, and I love that they just make fun of that because a lot of people said that. I remember hearing that in high school.
Yeah, you don't have to. Yeah, a cop can't lie. They have to tell you they're a cop, and that's not at all true.
Yeah, I don't know where people get that. And this is where we meet Saul Goodman.
Better Call Saul.
His introduction. It's just like the commercial in the opening credits, but yeah, having no idea at the time. It comes off very Tim and Eric like, and he was on Tim and Eric was really big at the time. And that commercial just seems very Tim and Eric like directed. And then they hire that guy that will go to jail for $30,000. He goes to jail for like, think about minimum wage job, pays more than that a year, or about that much a year. Sorry, that much a year.
Well, but this was 2009.
At the time, it was less, but yeah, the thing is that money goes a long way in prison. I guess that's the idea.
Sorry.
Unfortunately, guys, I hate to announce this way. We lost Karen. It was a pleasure knowing you, Karen, but she just coughed and appears to have died. Anyway, we will have a moment of silence for her in the next podcast episode. We do not have time for the moment of silence in this episode, so we'll discuss that next week. Jesse suggests he suggests they share a joint, but she says she's been sober for 18 months. And back from the dead, guys, we have Karen Peterson.
Hey.
She's able to persevere from life-threatening situations.
It's true.
Jared from Tulsa, Oklahoma said in the chat, "I'm glad you're back, Karen, and I'm glad you did not die." We're all with you,
Thanks,
Jared from
Jared from
Tulsa,
Tulsa,
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
We really appreciate that. I like how I'm saying where they're from, and if that was really in the chat, it would say where they're from.
You're keeping with the theme of this season.
Right. And also she treats him bad in front of her own dad, causing Jesse to feel demoralized until she made a sketch of a superheroine named Apology Girl, which was really, really cute. I would almost go to as far as saying that was totes adorbs. What do you think, Karen Peterson?
Totes
adorbs.
Totes.
Right. Walt finds out his cancer's remission, and he's disappointed. He throws a fit in his car. He just like starts punching everything, and
I don't know.
It's more complicated. If you say, is it's more complicated than that? I will see that immediately.
It is more complicated than that. I think that, I mean, I do think that he's a little bit like he had prepared himself. He saw a glimpse of that scan. He saw this big mass in his lung and thought, "Oh crap, yeah, like this is done. I'm done." And then he finds out, nope, you're in remission. We don't know how much, like, what this means, what this is going to do. And I think that his reaction is a little bit more of just kind of it's like sometimes when you're in a really scary situation and you don't feel the anxiety of it until after it's over. Like, to me, that's how I read it. It's not he's disappointed that he's gonna live for a while longer. It's like that's when he's finally reacting to the fact that he really thought he was about to die.
I took it as like he did a couple decisions that predicated upon him dying.
Yeah.
For them to come to fruition, and now he's stuck with those, and it removes the freedom that he felt.
That's true. Yeah.
In doing those illegal activities, knowing there's nothing they could really do to him, he was completely free. So.
Oh, wait, sorry. I'm not supposed to agree with you. You're wrong.
Thank you, Karen Peterson, for being your normal self. That's what people tune in for. The checks and balances of the Watch and Talk.
Exactly.
Happen between us.
That's what I'm here for.
I also do love the scene where Jesse goes back and pays Badger's what's it called? Cousin for the RV, the money he owed him, and for the gate, and then buys another car off of him.
Yeah.
And he says, "My word is like my bond, yo."
Jesse.
Skylar hosts a party. I love this scene. When they have a party for him and he's drinking tequila.
Yep.
And Hank, honestly, like if I was in his shoes, what Hank did would piss me off. Because he's like, it's my house. Because he's like, Hank's always swinging his dick around about what a tough guy he is. Walt is unamused by Hank and his tough guy macho-ness. He's been abused by Hank for years, by him underestimating him and making condescending comments to him. Like, oh, you can't even hold a gun, that kind of stuff. Laughing about what a wimp he is. And he has a scene where he's like, no, I'm going to stand up to him. He didn't give a shit where Walt Jr. drank tequila or not, but this became a place to stand his ground against Hank, and he chose a really bad time to do it.
And a bad way to do it.
What?
And a bad way to do it. Yeah. Getting his son in the middle of it really was not a cool way to do it.
Right. I didn't mean the time of day being the bad thing. I meant the situation that he decided to do.
Well, no, but I mean, getting his son, like, they can do their macho, tough guy thing, but putting his son in the middle between two men that he really respects and admires was so unfair. And it's interesting because I totally hear what you're saying. And if I were in Walt's shoes, yeah, absolutely, I'd be pissed off. I'd be like, don't tell me what to do. But if I were in Hank's shoes, as you know, I mean, I love my nephew. I love my brother and sister-in-law. But if they were doing something like that, I probably wouldn't call them out right in front of the kid. But
Right.
I would
That's
be
it.
like,
I'd be like,
guys, I would say I feel like
I
I would
would
say
probably
something.
be like, all right, well, I wouldn't if I were you, Walt Jr. I'm getting up and going, making it clear, but without,
Yeah,
like, I don't know.
maybe.
It depends
But
on the
it's
situation.
yeah, but I guess I'm just saying, like, from Hank's perspective, I understand why he felt like somebody needed to say something, and it was like he was the one that was there and that really was could say something. So
And he has this
it's
great
like
scene where he goes, my house, my
Mhm.
tequila, my son. And, Hank is like, yo, what has gotten into you? But that's been brewing for a long time with Walt. And now he's kind of
Oh yeah,
frustrated,
totally.
feeling a loss of the freedom that he felt he had. And I got the impression he's trying to regain that freedom that he felt when he got
And
canceled.
to take some power.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Anyway, that doesn't turn out well because it involves Walt Jr. puking into the pool. Come on, bro, you can do better than that.
That's just you don't puke in the pool. There's bushes right there, man.
You here at Better Talk Saul, we always say don't puke in the pool. Right,
Do
Karen?
not do it. Do not puke in the pool.
All right.
Oh, that's so gross.
Combo shot and killed, and the world
Poor combo.
rejoices.
No, poor combo. So sad.
And this, I thought the revenge for Combo happened quickly afterward. It doesn't happen for a whole season, but you'll have to wait until
Yeah.
next season to find out how that happens. Jesse gets into it kind of pushes Jesse into drugs. So all of these like events that happen push the characters into the certain dire straits that they get into.
Yes.
I also love the
Season
scene
2
of
really is about kind of moving some chess pieces into very specific places.
right. I love the scene of Saul showing up, taking interest in
Uh-huh.
him at the school and them, you know,
Yeah. And like, oh, this is how
forming
easy it is to find you, dude.
right, right. Um, then it puts him in touch with Gustavo Fring, which we meet, and it is funny in hindsight watching this. Obviously, now I've rewatched the show several times after watching it, so you always see him sweeping up the floor in the background and all that kind of stuff. And it's obvious when you're rewatching it, but at the time it did not seem that obvious. This is a nice little surprise.
Yeah.
And they originally say no because Jesse's high and all this kind of stuff. He gets another chance though. And that's obviously in a obviously huge pivotal scene for the show. He's going to make the drop. Jesse's high on heroin with Jane. He breaks into the house, takes it. He only has an hour and finds out his wife's having the baby at the same time.
The baby that we've been waiting for like a season and a half for, that they even had the Walt's doctor make a joke about how long she's been pregnant and is that baby ever coming? And then the baby comes at the worst time, like they always do.
Now, for the listeners, I think a lot of people can probably relate with doing a massive meth deal while your wife is giving birth. So anybody that can kind of provide some context, a lot of people seem to be doing that in the chat. We do appreciate that. So continue to give us context on how you felt when you're doing a drug deal while your wife is having a unexpected birth early.
Well, you should read that comment from Nancy from Duluth.
Where is she from?
Duluth.
Duluth.
Yeah.
Nancy from Duluth. Oh, Karen, you can read it.
She says she likes your mustache.
Thank you, Nancy from Duluth. We like yours. Also, there's the accounting irregularities from Beneke. This comes into play later. She finds that he's cooking the books. Ted plays dumb.
That Ted.
Setting us up for stuff in the future that, who knows? Well, I guess we'll find out.
Ted.
But
this is, I think this is an important moment for Skylar, and an important thing for us to see about Skylar is he admits that he's doing it. He has this whole excuse for why, and she's just like, okay, I'm gonna stay and help. And it makes me wonder if Walt had been a little bit more honest with her in the first place. Not entirely. I don't think if he said, hey honey, I am cooking meth now and selling it to cartels, and almost got murdered multiple times, I don't think she'd be like, cool. But if he, had come up with his story about coming into money sooner, and then just was like, yeah, I need to launder it, I think there's a part of her that might have gotten on board with it. I don't know. And I only get that because of this whole thing with Ted.
I mean, she was pissed about the shoplifting from her sister, didn't want to talk to her. But
right.
That also could be because of the embarrassment, not necessarily the moral situation.
Yeah, that's the thing. She was highly embarrassed and treated badly because they thought she was the one who did it. And she wasn't the one who did it.
Jesse thinks that the meth was stolen. Walt basically hangs up on him, and Jesse figures it out. That it was Walt. And
I love how he's like, yeah, I listened to the messages and I figured it out. And Walt's just like, I basically told you in the messages.
I think Walt makes probably what ends up being the worst decision of one of the worst decisions of the whole show, which is telling him, I'll hold the money until you're clean, which probably shouldn't have done that because everything would have turned out a little differently.
Yes, it definitely would have gone differently, but who knows what would have happened. I think he and Jane would have left, and he probably would have overdosed. And I think that's where you do see a little bit of where Walt, for all of his flaws and his steady slide into being evil, he still cares. And even though he's been really mean to Jesse and he's been really hard on Jesse, he still cares about Jesse. I don't think that he's holding that money because he wants the power over him. I think he genuinely, in that moment when he makes that decision, is because he really does want Jesse to clean himself up.
Sarah Jane in the chat just said, Dylan is so handsome. He's ridiculously good looking. Thank you, Sarah Jane from Miami. We appreciate comments like that. Please keep comments only like that coming for the rest of the chat, everybody who's in it. Saul figures out a way to launder Walt's take through SaveWalterWhite.com. The website of Walter Jr. Let's see if that's still a website.
Oh, yeah.
Because they actually hosted that as a website. My computer might freak out because I'm
probably.
I mean, I've had this computer for 10 years. Oh, still runs. Still running strong. Let's do a share screen, even though that will probably completely crash.
It's going to crash the whole live stream. Oh, look at Walt. What a nice family, man. Oh, his newborn baby. How much money has it raised?
Let's take turns reading this.
Okay.
When I say pass, you start reading.
I love that it's in Comic Sans.
Me too. My dad is amazing. It's funny, but I didn't know that until I found out he was going to die. That is going to happen soon. That it was real. Then I thought about a lot of stuff, things I hadn't thought of for a long time. I guess I kind of took it for granted or something. I mean, our parents are just always there. You expect them to always be bugging you to clean up your room or study harder or have good manners or try new things to grow up and be a more well-rounded person one day. Pass.
And make you get up early on the weekend to have family time and all that other stuff that used to drive me crazy. I don't feel that way now. Everything's different since Dad got his diagnosis. since I realized that one day in the near future he might not be around to drive me crazy. Are you going to go?
Continue.
Okay. Now I feel lucky when he asks me about my day. I used to totally hate that question. Or nags me about coming home on time at night and being responsible. One day he won't be here to ask. Now I feel lucky when I hear his car pulling into the driveway after school. I even like to hear him coughing. It means he's still around. Still my dad.
Oh shit.
Oh my gosh, that's so long.
That's what she said.
Not to
Yeah,
you.
I don't want to keep reading. Can we donate?
Click here to donate.
Oh, it's AMC's
It's
shows Breaking Bad. So you can't actually donate. I would have donated $5 right now. Visitors so far
and I'll
1368. Bullshit. That number does not change.
No, it
Um
definitely doesn't.
I love how he does type like a teenager. Like this was me at 17. This is the way I talked.
Yeah,
You expect
that's
them to
fun.
always be bugging you to clean up your room or study harder, have good manners, or try new things and grow up and be a more well-rounded person one day. Kids are
Uh-huh.
idiots.
Kids are. And they grow up to be adult idiots.
Yep. Anyway, so Jane, who has promised her father Donald she'd enter rehab the next day, blackmails Walt for Jesse's money. Walt turns it over, but a coincidental bar chat with Donald inspires his return to Jesse's apartment, where he watched. See, a lot of coincidences here. Where he watched a drugged up Jane choke to death on her own vomit, but he causes it to happen because him busting in, like, disturbed her sleep and got her to turn over.
Yeah. So here's everything I want to say about this probably like 5 to 10 minute section
All right, no
of
problem. All right, thanks for coming
episode
by. So
12.
we're wrapping up the podcast
Stop it.
now. Why don't you
I'm
tell
not going
people
to
where they
talk
can
for
follow?
5 to 12 minutes. Stop it. But episode 12. So when Walt, he basically is like, he uses a trip to the store to get diapers as his excuse to go take Jesse his money, and has that conversation, gives the money over, and then leaves and goes to the bar. To me, I used to think it was a big coincidence that, like, oh, how does he end up at the same bar at the same time as Jane's dad? And it's like, well, Albuquerque isn't that big of a town, especially in the context in the world of Breaking Bad. And they've both just literally left the same duplex. So, not obviously a little bit, there was a little bit of time in between, but it doesn't, it's not a huge coincidence that if they're
Like the
both
plane
just
crashing
looking
overhead.
for, that is ridiculous. Yes. But the fact that that flight path just happens to be right over Walt's house. Yes, totally weird. Um but the fact that they would both end up drowning their sorrows at the same bar makes sense because of the fact that they've literally both come from the same house.
Fair enough.
And
Fair enough perspective for once from Karen Peterson. You are appreciated.
and then when Walt goes over there, you're absolutely right. The fact that he comes in the way that he does disturbs Jane, makes her roll over, and then she chokes on her vomit and chokes to death. And Walt makes the decision in that moment not to help her. And the
He goes
reason
to
that
help
I
her.
say, he starts to, and then he decides not to. He stops.
He's like,
And
oh, here's an opportunity.
right. And the reason that I say I think this is the moment that Walt breaks bad fully and completely is because he cries. When she dies, when she takes her last breath and he realizes, like, wait, I basically just helped kill this person. Um he actually cries. And then he makes himself stop crying, and then he just gets this hard look on his face like, okay, well, that problem's actually solved. Like, that's, and then from there on, he's fully committed to doing whatever is necessary. Like, that's kind of where his humanity really leaves. He still has some care for Jesse, he still cares about his family, but any real chance of Walt turning away from this path ends when Jane dies.
That's an interesting perspective, but let me tell you why you're wrong.
If you can
I'm just
find a
kidding.
reason, which you cannot,
You
because
better.
I'm not wrong.
Actually, I hate to say it, but I think I pretty much agree with you.
Thank you.
It hurts me to say that.
I know it does, and I appreciate it.
I love how like full circle Karen Peterson and I's relationship has come, where we've just parody any bickering we've done on the podcast, but the bickering's all been fun and good fun
Yes,
for the most part. 25%
it's
of
true.
it was fun.
Like
So
18.
so Jesse wakes up and that's where the finale starts
Mhm.
with it's showing like the bed frame shaking. It's almost like
It's showing a mattress on the springs, and you
right.
hear the
Almost like it's
grunting.
insinuating that it could be sex happening on the bed or something like that.
Mhm.
And then then you find out it's actually him trying to resuscitate her. And Jesse spirals from this, ends up going to like a crack den to do heroin. And Walt checks him into a rehab. That's like also a very spa like rehab.
Yeah, it's a very nice place.
Yeah. Looks like he puts him in an expensive one.
Yes.
Is what I'm saying. That's like Matthew Perry status.
Right.
This article just dropped about Matthew Perry where he
I
wrote a
read it today.
memoir
Yeah.
about it.
He has a book coming out about his time at Friends and stuff, and yeah.
Yeah, and I think that will be. I'm going to read it definitely because I like when famous people come out about that because I also am a person in recovery, but I never went to rehab, so I never went through that. So it is interesting rewatching this show and watching the season as somebody who is now sober. Seeing from that perspective, seeing AA meetings, which I also attend and stuff like that, it is interesting to see the perspective because a lot of it really feels authentic to me. I'll sit here watching the show and I'll be like, Combo and Tuco, they're kind of come off as a little corny to me. But the depiction of sobriety, how family members deal with it, family members rebuilt trust from somebody that they had been completely torn down, and he really wants to trust her, right? The father really wants to trust her, and how her sobriety gets broken down. All of it is really interesting to watch from my perspective now, and it comes off as really authentic to me. I definitely think there's people that write for the show or people they consulted. A lot of people, I feel like they've consulted. They've done it. It's interesting too because a lot of times in movies and TV, I feel like some of the things for recovery, the way sponsors are shown and stuff like that, comes off very different than reality. When you think about how many people in Hollywood have to go through that, right? So many people have to go through that in Hollywood, or do go through it in Hollywood, which I find interesting. So I figured I'd give that perspective as we wrap up this episode.
I appreciate you sharing that, and I think I've never been in the shoes of being an addict, but I have definitely seen other people. I've had friends that have experienced that, and there's certain things just um in the way, like when Jane's dad shows up and he's like, "You're going to rehab today," and she's begging him and she's just throwing everything at him to try to
Manipulating.
convince him. Yeah, and it's completely manipulative, and it's just like, yeah, I have literally watched people do that, and it's like I can identify the bullshit now, and I can also understand why her dad so desperately wants to believe her.
Right. Yeah, he wants. Yeah, he'll regret that the rest of his life, but he'll also probably spend the rest of his life in prison, I'm assuming.
For crashing a plane on Walt's house.
Or crashing two planes into each other.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I don't think one flight controller can do that.
I mean, I've never been a flight controller,
Well,
air
I have.
traffic controller,
I have. So
but
let me explain
I
it
mean,
to you.
they're managing multiple flights in the airspace at the same time. So I mean, I've heard of situations where not usually two big planes, but I've heard of situations where because a path wasn't clear properly, planes have collided in midair, and it's been the air traffic controller's fault. Yeah.
Wow, this next sentence I completely disagree with in
Uh-oh.
the Breaking Bad wiki. Donald returns to work as an air traffic controller. Distracted by thoughts of his daughter, he inadvertently causes 2 planes to collide in the sky over Walt's house. If this is your interpretation, I have interpreted this different than everybody in the whole world this entire time. It looks to me, I have always interpreted it as he snapped and he made a conscious decision to make both of them crash.
You have definitely watched a much different scene than all of us have. Yeah, I don't think he did it on purpose, but I think
he gives a direction, then he says, never mind. Then he gives a different direction.
I think it's because he's distracted, he's grieving, he's come back to work way too soon, and he's also exhausted. And I think he's just not there. He shouldn't be working. I don't think, to me, I've never seen that as he did it on purpose. That's interesting. I think you're the only person I've ever heard that said it was
obvious.
Huh. That's so interesting.
But maybe we've established something. Maybe I've been, I will say, as always, I always will cop up to being wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. I think that's my
You're
MO.
so good at it. Greg from Des Moines agrees with me. So
did he intentionally? Jane's father did not crash the planes intentionally as an act of revenge. Hell, he didn't even know that Walt was present at Jane's death. Oh, of course, he didn't intentionally get him to crash over at Walt's house. No, the episode features a plane crash goes to quite a length to show that Donald is grief-stricken after Jane's death and his mental act. I disagree with that, making it being on purpose being out of the way. Let's see. The episode features a plane crash going to quite a length on the show that Donald is grief-stricken after James' death. Yeah, that's why somebody would snap and do that. But his mental agonies caused him to be distracted enough to accidentally let 2 planes collide. He is advised by a colleague to take the day off, but disregards their advice. Watch his face during the moment before the 2 planes collide. His expression clearly shows that he is distracted and his mind is on his dead daughter, not his work. The fact that we hear on the news later that Donald shot himself. Oh, I didn't remember that. Suggests he felt overwhelming.
Something had happened. I couldn't remember what happened with him, but
if Donald had done it intentionally, that would somewhat undermine the idea of Walt's actions having a society-wide repercussions in the classically tragic sense. This person's reasonings I disagree with, although I'm like feeling like I might be wrong. That I thought that, but that's how I always interpreted it.
Well, I think what he's saying as far as the classically tragic sense is like, because if your interpretation of that was correct, then Walt's actions caused someone else to make a choice. Whereas I think the intention is the ripple effect of Walt's actions just causing other things to happen. And I never saw it as a choice. I never saw it as an intentional act. I saw it as more collateral damage from what Walt did, because he's left this father so grief-stricken that he's really not aware of what he's doing and does this horrible thing on accident.
Well, I just think this is on Reddit and comment. Why would that undermine it? He was so grief-stricken that he stressed out and was able to focus, or he was so grief-stricken that he was driven to cause a mid-air collision and inflict his pain on others. Both of those would be, would not. I think neither of those would undermine it. I just think the reasoning this person said is the thing I disagree with at this point. Because also, if the ripple effect of Walt is that he got other people that were otherwise good to do terrible things, like he just went fucking postal, which is kind of how I looked at it. Man, how far we've come from the meaning of the term postal. That would you never even hear about now. Anyway, you know what? I always interpret them as him sitting there and being like, when he changes, he's like, never mind, do this. I always interpreted that as him making the decision. No, actually, I'm going to have you do this, and has the 2 planes crashes. So
see, I heard that as like he was realizing, like, wait, no, I don't want you to do that. I made a mistake, and he's he's still trying to cling to awareness of the situation, and then he just makes that catastrophic error.
Yeah, it seems in my searching on the internet that you might be right. That's how I always thought of it, though. I always thought of it as, everybody, everywhere I see, he indirectly caused the plane to crash inadvertently. So I guess I've always misinterpreted that scene. And it makes no impact on the rest of the series how you interpreted that scene. I'll tell you that much.
True.
All of a sudden, the whole show starts becoming different to me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think it's just a really tragic. I think it's just a really tragic thing for him. And then, as far as more to add, I think you go from that, and then you have this scene with Walt, going in for his surgery, and that whole thing with the second cell phone, and I guess it's all happening around the same time. But yeah, you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation that this season ends with this big question mark of like Skylar's packing up and asking Walt to leave. What's going to happen to them?
Also, instruction of Mike to clean up Jane's body.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to talk about the scene, one of Skylar's best scenes, and I hope I'm not cutting out right now while my computer is freaking out about me loading up a Wikipedia page.
Your audio is fine, so the camera keeps
okay. My
jumping,
audio's fine.
but
That's
your
all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Except for the literal hundreds of thousands of people online that are watching this right now. So as soon as everything's like cleared up and he's can go back to normal, which seems like it had been for a week or so while he recovered, immediately once he's okay to resume life as normal, she starts packing her things, and she reveals that Walt's lied about his second cell phone. And he, just like in the Hector Salamanca scene, it seems like he thinks he's going to be able to talk his way out of this, or he's still good in this situation. But again, as we reveal information, it builds the tension of the scene in a really beautiful way. She's like, I called Gretchen and Elliot, and she finally told me that she didn't pay for that. And then, your fugue state, and that you never visited your mother, and she didn't even know you had cancer. How could he think he was going to get away with that?
Yeah. Well, and the way that she delivers that entire monologue, and when she talks about like, so I called your mother, thanks for that. Like, oh, you can just feel how awful that phone call was to make, and then to hear what she heard in that conversation. Oh man, yeah, it's really great work from her. And yeah, and it really is like how did Walt think he was going to get away with this forever? Like, why did he think that none of this was going to come back to bite him? Well, I think part of it is because he thought he was going to die. He didn't expect to live long enough for any of this to play out. And the other part of it is he just thinks he's smarter than everybody.
Yeah.
And he just totally underestimates anybody's ability to figure out his bullshit.
Yep. And it all came back because he's good with the science. He's not good with the human interactions.
Yeah. Which is typical of science people.
Yeah.
They will tell you that themselves.
With that, let's wrap up our season 2 conversation. We'll be back next month to discuss season 3.
Alrighty.
Karen Peterson, why do you tell people they can follow you on the internet? Because I'm sure they want to see you all over the internet. They want to read stuff. They want to hear more stuff. They want to watch more stuff. Where can they do all these things? Is there a place they can do this? Where can they find you and follow these things to follow you on?
They could do that. They could do that very easily by going to Twitter or to Instagram or to Letterboxd or all three and finding me
or
at
2 of the
Karen
3.
M. Or 2 of the 3 or 1 of the 3 or 4 of the 3, whatever you want.
At Karen M. Peterson.
Yes, that is me.
And for me, you can follow me at the Dylan Schuck. That's TheDylanSchuck. For the show, you follow us at BetterTalkSaul. And also, Karen Peterson does the watch and talk without me. She kicked me off.
I usurped the throne.
And you guys still doing that weekly?
We
basically?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yep. So check that out too. at the Watch and Talk on Twitter. And if you want to email us at bettertalksaul@gmail.com. And subscribe to the YouTube. Go to at BetterTalkSaul on Twitter. Lots of links to the YouTube channel. It's made a pain in the ass for us to try to make a URL for having YouTube. Whatever. We're boomers when it comes to the YouTube stuff. So anyway, that's it. I'm Dylan Schuck.
I'm Karen Peterson.
And we'll see you next month.